We are
Everything's big.
live.
All right. Thanks, guys, for joining the latest episode here live every Saturdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, my co-host, Brian the Beast Robinson. Today, we got David Richardson, founder of American Ninjutsu Warrior Concepts. He is a ninja. He's a magician. He's a former Marine. He's a bouncer. Basically, he is a badass. Thanks so much for joining us, David.
I'm just a nice guy.
Just a
You
nice
seem
guy. To summarize, he's just a nice guy. I have to
But
bring something up.
before we can I break the ice just real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just to kind of wake everybody up a little bit. I have a deck of cards here. All right.
Oh boy, you're gonna
What
freak me out, aren't you?
David, what I want you to do is now, before I came on camera here, I turned a card upside down of my own inside this deck. What I want you to do, David, is just throw out a card, any card in your mind, just yell it out.
A 4 of diamonds.
4 diamonds. That's a good card. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my deck here from the box very slowly. Nothing tricky. And tell me when you see my upside down card. It should be one card turned over. Tell me when you see it.
There it is.
What was your card again, sir?
A 4 of diamonds.
1, 2, and 3.
Dude, like, how do you guys do that, man? Like, and I don't know if you want to reveal the trick. That's insane, though, because I was literally trying to think of, like, the most random card, you know, not like an ace of spades or anything, but just some random thing nobody would pick.
Exactly.
That's insane.
Now we can get started, shall we?
Well, you broke the ice. You blew my mind, man. You'll have to tell me later.
It's a beautiful thing.
Anyway, one thing, and there's so much to discuss today. One thing I did want to ask, because I made a video.
Without any further notice, I have not drunk the Kool-Aid, by the way.
Okay.
That's a running gag among your show.
Of course it is. Yeah, related to Mr. Frank Dukes.
I'm anti-Kool-Aid.
Shidoshi Dukes. I got to ask, because I mentioned this. I did a video, got like 17,000 views last year. Pretty good video. Popularity-wise, I mean, the topic's a little interesting. It had to do with like a letter that you received in the mail. Like, did you ever, it was like a death threat, man. Like, did you ever figure out, or did you send it to the police? Like, did they ever figure out who the hell wrote that thing?
Okay, so there's a backstory to that letter before I even got the letter. And it concerns a chat room that I was in. This chat room, there was a few other people in the chat room, a few of the martial artists in the chat room. The N-word was thrown out by a guy by the name of Dallas Whittingford, or whatever his name is. Good friend of Frank Dukes. And apparently this guy said the N-word concerning the death of that teenager that was killed out there. I can't think of his name. Trayvon Martin.
Okay.
So he said a very negative thing towards that kid who's no longer with us. And he used the N-word when he said it. Jeez. So I called him out on it, and so did a few other people. And then Ashita Kim jumped in the room. You know who Ashita Kim is. He jumped in the room talking smack. And then Frank Dukes comes in the room and defends this guy and says the guy that's just the way the guy talks, and it's just a Vietnam thing or whatever. And I basically said, no, there's no excuse ever. There's no excuse ever to use that word the way this guy used it. Mm-hmm. And so did everybody else. And so basically, that's what started the whole situation with me and Dukes again. And then after that, I received the letter in the mail. And that's what spearheaded the whole thing in regards to the letter.
And do you think it was the guy that made that, that word in that form?
Whoever wrote the letter knew that Dukes lived in Vegas. So whoever it was wanted me to think it was Dukes, for one. Two, They knew they was in that room at that time as well. They was also in that room. There were a lot of things in the letter that made me, that allowed me to know that whoever wrote it was in the room at the same time that guy said that word. So there you have it.
But you never found out who actually wrote it.
Well, I have my suspicions now on who really wrote the letter now. Yes. And you know who he is as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's a crazy thing, man. And that's something that I'm sorry that you received in the mail, but crazy. Now, as far as like, let's go to your martial arts training because you started in Duke's Rue back, I think, in the 80s, the late 80s, right?
1989.
Did you go there because of the movie Bloodsport?
What's interesting is that I was the late bloomer when it came to the martial arts, period, for one. Second, I had no idea about Bloodsport. I knew nothing about Bloodsport. Or maybe I knew about the movie because I just got out the Marine Corps, but I didn't know that it was connected with Frank Dukes or Dukes Rue Ninjutsu, what have you. The only reason why I decided to go to Dukes Rue is because I couldn't find any other ninjutsu schools or what I thought was ninjutsu schools here in America when I got the Marine Corps. I had got shot at point blank range, and at that time, I was looking for something to kind of get my life back in order.
If I ask, was it in the military or on the street?
No, it was in the street. All the action I've seen was mostly in the street.
Okay.
So I was shot at point
What
blank range.
happened? Let's talk about that if you don't mind. Like, how'd you get in that situation?
Stupid. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I got the munchies and I decided to go out to get something at one of those all-night gas stations. And I got to the window and this guy was there with his gun in my face talking about he was going to rob me, whatever. And keep in mind, I hadn't started training in the martial arts. Not to say that anything different, but he said he wanted all my money. So I tried to go for the gun because I thought the gun was fake, like an idiot. And he just let loose. So I was hitting my shoulder. The bullet's now on my clavicle. And I was hitting my side. That one's on my spine.
Dang.
And luckily that the caliber of the pistol was small, because if it was anything bigger, like a 38, I would have been knocked on my ass, and then they could have finished me off. But luckily, it was I think it was a 25 or a 22.
Wow, that's horrible. So when you say you could have had the caliber been bigger, knocked down your ass, and
the power of the bullet would have definitely put me down. But because those bullets, the caliber of those bullets were small, I was able to keep running as the guy was chasing.
Oh, so you ran once you found out it was real gun.
Backpedaling as he was shooting.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't even realize this until after the fact, was that he had somebody in a car waiting for him. So the car tried to run me over at the same time.
Jeez.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow. So that basically, you primarily went to martial arts to find a school strictly for self-defense.
Not necessarily, though. I'd always been interested in ninjutsu, and that's because of my magic background. I don't know if you noticed or not, but magicians were known as, ninjutsu practitioners were known as magicians of mayhem on the battlefield. So that's what drew me to it. It was the deception and the distraction elements of the system itself. And with me being a magician already, I thought it was perfect,
So can I ask a quick question about that? So what would be one thing, because this is really fascinating, just because of the stuff I'm involved with, but on the battlefield, what would be something they would do you would call, like, it would be a magic trick on a battlefield
that a
ninja would employ?
Very good question. A little background about magic when it comes to combat. I don't know if you ever heard of a magician by the name of Masculine, but he was known as the combat magician, or what happened was to help
World War II, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I know. I just wanted to make sure I'm thinking and say, go ahead.
They use the combat aspects of camouflage in that. So when the planes flew over, it looked like the tanks were really just they were disguised tanks. In other words, there wasn't real tanks. So if you were flying over the field, all you saw was like maybe a hospital or maybe a personnel vehicle to hide the fact that it was a real tank. Well, he used that. That's a camouflage technique that's used in magic as well on the battlefield.
Yeah, that's interesting, because he also then they asked him, because he said he could make a ship disappear. It was just, he was just being hyperbolic, whatever you call it when you're
exactly.
And they said to him, well, what can you do? What would you do? And he also is the one who invented the mock tanks, like the blow up tanks. That was
Yes.
him, and they
Yes.
deployed him during Normandy. They put him out
Wow,
because
you
the
did your
Germans
homework,
were
man.
yeah, they convinced it was a whole nother army, this big other army.
Yeah, he made it seem like the troops over here. In reality, the troops over here coming around.
And so what would that be like for a ninja? Like how would they deploy something like that?
That's what. Well, we're talking concepts here. We're talking camouflage. We're talking distraction. We're talking even Ali. I don't know if you know this, but Muhammad Ali was very, very intrigued by magic, and that's because the distraction element of it. Ali loved magic. Something that his footwork. If you look at his footwork, is very deceptive. You know, the movements, all that stuff he got from using learning magic and so forth. Magic was just a hobby to him, of course, but concept wise, all that stuff could be applied to the battlefield, such as distraction, camouflage, all these things, pyrotechnics, you name it.
And
Very interesting.
what kind of if I may, one more question because I'm really fascinated by this side of stuff is what would be a main thing if you say ninjas, the biggest thing that would be on the battlefield they would apply to be distracting or pyrotechnic? What was like something really profound you'd say would disturb the enemy?
Well, they relied on something called a mystique called the Tengu, which is more dealing with mysticism more than anything else. But Tengu was a mystical being that was set to put fear into the hearts of men or the enemy or what have you. So they utilize that to their advantage, you know. So let's say, for example, you're in the battlefield and you were to see like something move behind where nothing's supposed to be at. You see something move. Oh, guess what? Now you got fear in the hearts of your enemy. Shuriken, people always thought about Shuriken, which was the throwing stars that you saw used by the ninja. These throwing stars wasn't really meant to be lethal. They wasn't meant to kill someone. They were used as a distraction as well. Imagine a throwing star cutting through the air and slicing you and cutting you maybe and you're in the battlefield. Well, guess what? Now this person can go back and tell his friends or whoever's working with them that he was cut by an invisible enemy. He couldn't see the person who cut him. He was cut. He was cut by him. As far as he's concerned, it was just a sword. Little did he know it was just a shrinking from a distance.
Oh, that's interesting.
Very interesting. Wow.
Yeah, let's go back to Duke's Roost. So when you started training there, how was the training?
Intense.
Oh, yeah.
Intense. And we're talking about now someone had just got out the Marine Corps. I just got out the Marine Corps, and I joined Duke's Rue, and I'm telling you, the training was off. And let's not forget about the black belt test. That was a whole nother world in itself. In fact, I failed the first time. But yeah, very intense, very intense.
Well, I got to ask about the black belt test now. So how long were you training in Duke's Rue before you got to test for the black belt in that system?
I started training in Duke's Rue in '89. I was ranked in my first Dan in 1996. I failed the first time, like I said, and I passed the second time. It's a 3-day test, though. We're talking, and I call it the 3-day test of hell because we're talking everything when it comes to pain, when it comes to breaking you down, making sure that you're at your bare essentials. Because if you think about it, anybody can do a technique perfect or whatever it is, a flow, what have you, perfect when you're fresh. But when you're tired and hurting and you want to give up, can you do it then? Which makes sense. In a real situation, that's where you're going to be. You're not going to be all fresh. You're in a real situation, you're going to be so tired and hurting and fear and all that stuff is going to come into play. So, and that's what I got a lot of when it came to pressure testing my techniques. Pressure testing and aliveness is very, very important when it comes to real combat.
Do you consider Duke's Rue ninjutsu or not, though?
I do not consider Duke's Rue ninjutsu. It's not a traditional ninjutsu in itself. But we got Koru and we got Gendai. Koru being more of a traditional aspects, something that was historical. And then you got Gendai, which is more of a modernized. So they've taken some traditional aspects and have applied it to modern combat. But do I consider it historical, traditional ninjutsu? No, it's not. Which is, I think that's the reason why Dukes decided to spell it with an I instead of a U. When you hear this, when you see the spelling, it's not ninjutsu. It's not ninjutsu. It's ninjutsu.
Interesting.
Because he wanted everybody to understand that it was his interpretation of ninjutsu.
Okay. Did you actually spend a lot of time training with Frank Dukes, though?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Was he just not there, or was he training other students?
He was there and he wasn't there. But you gotta understand that at the level that he was at, he had black belts that he had trained, first generation and second generation. So why should he have to teach anybody? Although I trained under him a few times, but for the most part, his high-ranking students who were black belts were my instructors.
Opinion on Frank Dukes as a martial artist. What do you think about him?
Oh, in his heyday, he was no joke.
Okay.
He was no freaking joke. And even now, coming from the standpoint of his theories and his concepts and so forth, when it's applied to what it is that you're doing, it's off the chain. I mean, you can't be replaced. It's very, very scientific, but it's not ninjutsu. I repeat, it's not ninjutsu.
When you say that, do you mind if I ask one real quick?
Sure.
When you say it's not ninjutsu, are you talking about the techniques, the fighting techniques? Or are you talking about the mental concept of what a ninja actually is?
First of all, I love your questions, by the way. First of all, there's no fighting techniques that just strictly ninjutsu. There isn't. Okay, we're talking about samurai who were ninja and vice versa. These techniques on the battlefield, akijitsu, jujitsu, many different aspects of the martial arts were applied, judo, you name it. But keep in mind that these were ingrained into the fighting warriors, into what they were doing. So it wasn't a set techniques that were applied to just ninjutsu practitioners by themselves. Ninjutsu in itself is just a spycraft. It's basically espionage, infiltration, assassination, and so forth. All these things dealing with spycraft,
like the CIA to a certain extent. Basically,
well, yes. If you want to go universal, during any warring periods throughout the world, everybody had their equivalents of ninjutsu. The Japanese just have their monopoly on spycraft. No, you had different warring sections throughout the world who specialized in maybe 2 or 3 people doing what a platoon couldn't do.
I have another question related to Frank Dukes. So
you're just really on that Kool-Aid, aren't you?
Well, not so much on the Kool-Aid, just like because you're a black belt in that system. You've trained in the system, and I've heard people that actually train with them. They say like the guy knows his stuff. Why do you think he has a bad reputation though? It's primarily online, right? YouTube videos, forums, stuff like that.
No comment.
No comment. Okay. Fair enough. He's always a controversial figure for good or bad, but an interesting one. So didn't you go to Japan after training in Dukes Ryu, I believe? Because you wanted to.
I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
In 1996, after receiving my first Dan in Dukes Ryu, I started teaching. I was teaching at USC. I was teaching for different subleasing a couple of martial arts schools around town here in LA. And then Dukes and I fell out for the first time. And I decided I needed to find out where the real quote unquote ninjutsu was. And I'd heard about Hasumi Sensei. And I decided to try.
David, not to cut you off, why did you guys have a falling out for the first time at that point in time?
No comment.
Okay. All right, let's go to Japan then.
So we're in Japan. So it's my first time there, and I was just amazed at the people there, the culture, the food. And keep in mind, my taste when it comes to food, I basically ate American food while I was in Japan for the most part. Love the women though. Love the women. So I started training in Osaka, at a place in Osaka, and this is my first introduction into ninjutsu, being abroad, of course. And I trained in Tokyo a couple of times and came back, and that was my first impression of ninjutsu when I first went to Japan for the first time, and thereafter 4 different times after.
Can I ask you a question about? Oh, I'm sorry.
What did they think about your skill set? Because
I'm so glad you asked that. Because I don't want to come off as being negative, and I'm not negative, but I'm not going to lie. My first introduction into ninjutsu was very negative when it came to the Bujikan. They had heard, unfortunately, it comes with Duke's Rue. They had heard that I had trained under Frank Dukes, and they figured I was coming to Japan just for opportunistic pictures and so forth with Sumi Sensei. So they had me all wrong, of course. Mm-hmm. So I got a very nasty letter from them. Here I go with the letters again. All right. People like writing me letters. So I got a letter stating that if I come there, I'll be considered to be a charlatan and that everybody will know and don't even bother to come. And by the way, have I tried to blowfish this time of the year? That was a sarcastic remark. God. Yeah, exactly. It was sarcastic remarks stating that because blowfish was poisonous during that time of the year. So this person was very nasty. So I said, okay. So before I went for the first time, I wrote a letter to another instructor out there. I think he was a Daishian. And I wrote him, let him know if this is the way potential students are treated and with the rudeness that this guy did, then I don't want to be a part of the Bujikan. Mm-hmm. Do you know this guy wrote me back again to state that he apologized for the way he treated me and I'm welcome there and please forgive him and all this stuff and he'll see me when I get there. I go there that first time and I did my thing, I did my training and so forth. Of course, the way Duke's Rule move and the way the Bujikan members move is totally different. So I had to get used to that. I came back to America and I got a letter from the same creep. And do you know he had the nerve to say, I moved stiff and you don't like the way I move? And I said to myself, why didn't you say something to me when I was there? Why would you even, you're a freaking coward. He could have said anything negative to me while I was there. He couldn't wait till I get back to America to write me an email.
Now, can I ask a quick question about and this so I studied Goju-Ryu karate for many years, right? And then I actually was able to live in Korea for a year. And now I'm asking you a question. Did you find it? This was something that kind of I realized when I went to Asia, is I didn't truly understand Goju karate, the concepts of the way it was created, not the techniques as much as why we did the things we did, our rituals, until I understood Asian culture. Would you say to truly understand being a ninja, you have to experience Asian culture?
Well, first of all, being a ninja in this day and time is obsolete. You ask me. I don't think a ninja exists in this day and time. Are there ninjutsu practitioners? Yes, they are. But as far as a ninja, no, I don't think they exist. I've been to Philippines. I've been to Korea. I've been to Japan. And in fact, when I went to the Philippines, to answer your question, I was looking for a Eskrima, Kali Eskrima. Although I had learned the American movement, I wanted to learn some traditional stuff.
Are you a Jeet Kune Do guy, by the way? Is that why you're going? Were you a Jeet Kune Do or just?
Well, I just love mixing things up. I love mixing it up, So I go to the Philippines and come to find out they don't do that. That's not something that they do on a regular basis. In their school, in their schooling, as far as like what we do in basketball or football or baseball, that's what they do as far as their curriculum is concerned, is Arnis. Arnis is a part of their curriculum.
Mhm.
It's not something that
Mhm.
you will see at a dojo or a school, what have you. We're the only ones, Americans, who embrace that. Same thing with Japan. When I got to Japan, ninjutsu was something that was considered to be manga, or they don't take it too serious. You know, they have tourist attractions, of course, but we're the only ones that's all ninja this and ninja that, and you know.
Mm.
When you came back, I know you said you were in Japan, I believe, 4 times, but when you came back and primarily stayed in America, did you find a Bujinkan school to train at?
Yes, I did. I was very fortunate to find an instructor by the name of Sensei David Dow, and I trained with him for 3 years and got my first Dan ranked under him. And keep in mind, this instructor, Sensei David Dow, was very prolific in regards to his methods of training. He really truly believed in aliveness, and he really truly believed in pressure testing your techniques. That's something that's unheard of with the Bujinkan. Okay,
Mhm.
that's just something that they don't do. So, and he got a lot of flack for that. He got a lot of flack for that because he was breaking the protocol when it came to. And keep in mind, nowadays in the Bujinkan, you're going to see a lot more sparring and what have you. But for the most part, that's not something that they do when it comes to aliveness and so forth. In fact, he had an instructor come down and try to embarrass us by making some kind of point to show that we should not be learning aliveness at that level and pressure testing our techniques. So he put me on the floor with this guy. Keep in mind, I'm just a first Q. First Q, that means I'm very close to getting my first Dan. So he puts me on the floor with this guy. This guy's a fifth Dan in the Bujinkan. And I said, David, go for it. So the guy comes in there and he kind of tried to knock me around a little bit, right? And I didn't get the memo. So I'm just trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So I cold-cocked the guy. Cold-cocked him. I mean, and I gave him a good one. He stops the match and says he wants to, there's no more. He stops the match. And I'm like, okay. So I guess David gave him that look like, see, it does work.
Mm. And you were already trained in Duke's Reef for such a long time too. So even if you were just on your way to first Dan in Bujinkan,
well, I wasn't on spring chicken, of course, but the most part is he knew what he was doing by putting me on the floor with that guy. And of course, 2 weeks later, I was ranked in my first Dan. I don't want to say I got that rank off of knocking that guy's block off, but it is what it is, right?
How would you define yourself as a martial artist, if somebody asked? Because I know you're Duke's Ryu, Bujinkan. Sounds like you got some training elsewhere, but how would you just define yourself? Would you say I'm a Duke's Ryu guy, I'm a Bujinkan guy, or what would you say?
I would say that I'm a student of life.
Okay.
I'm a student of life. I use what works. I teach what works. I don't try to sugarcoat anything. If it works, use it.
Kind of like Jeet Kune Do, then.
Actually, yeah.
Do you mind if I ask a question about your technique?
Bruce called it the classical mess out the window, right?
Yeah. And grave. He had the little grave, remember?
Yeah.
Classical man, something like that.
Yes,
You mind if I ask you a technique question? So
please.
So I spend a lot of time with Terrible Tim Witherspoon, considered one of the greatest Philly shell masters, one of the founders, godfathers of the Philly shell. And I run a YouTube channel. We train constantly. We're always around each other. David got to train with him a bit. And you were saying something interesting. I'm going to tell you why. When you talked about, and this I've not heard a lot of martial arts people say at all. When you talked about this hand not leaving the body, right? Now, we approach the jab differently. You know, in the shell, you're tapping at it. But you said you do it a little, you have your own. But you said you never, you don't defy leaving the hand, getting the hand too far from the body.
It's
and
not
that
necessary. This works as an antenna. This is like
now, is that from Duke's Ryu or is that from boxing?
No. That's from Detroit.
Really? Because that is very, very Philly. A Philly shell. A lot of people say no. The Philly shell doesn't exist. It's a concept. It's not a defensive position. Like people think it's a shell. Is like it's like you're in an egg, and everything is always tight. You're never reaching out. You never reach. You're always at the end.
Keep in mind, this is not just this too. We're talking footwork as well. Footwork implemented, mixed in with that. So I'm not saying this is going to work by itself. Your footwork, your angling, your footwork, all that stuff comes into play when it comes to utilizing offensive and defensive techniques.
I thought that was interesting. So, just some little credibility there. I don't know anything about you two.
Yes, sir.
But you just said something there that Tim would be very, very rarely do you even hear boxers talk about that that barrier. You're never out here when we're in the boxing, the Philly show. We never reach the block ever. So, but anyways, I digress on that. That was very interesting. You brought that up, though.
I'm glad you brought that up because I worked as a bouncer at a nightclub in Hollywood for about 20 years, and I developed a way of being cordial and being protective, but at the same time, I'm ready to go. So I go here, I kind of stay here. I'd be like, calm down, everything's gonna be okay, and that to me, that's a way of me being protective of myself. But at the same time, they don't realize how close it is that I'm able to get past their defenses as well. But you're talking about a way of pressure testing your techniques and the liveness and so forth. You really learn what's going to work and what's not going to work when you're doing what that, especially being a bouncer and so forth. Going to the street, going to the ground. That's the last place you want to be when it comes to combat in a situation like that. A controlled environment, no problem. But when it comes to an uncontrolled environment, such as the streets, a nightclub, a bar, you name it, no. So although we may learn how to defend ourselves on the ground, it's not something that we're going to do. We're going to live on the ground. You got to learn what it takes and what it is to be, what it's like to be on the ground to be able to defend against it. And that's something that we learn as well.
Yeah, that's very similar to Krav Maga, for example. You do learn ground techniques, but they do preach get the hell off the ground immediately. But hey, if you're there, here's a couple things. Are you still currently bouncing these days or not?
No, I'm retired, sir.
Okay. That's definitely a way you could have pressure tested all those martial arts for sure. Let's talk about, for whatever reason, there's a lot of drama in the martial arts world, and it seems more so in the ninjutsu world. Can you talk a little bit? I know you had a feud with a couple of people, like Don Rowley, for example.
Oh, Lord.
Interesting stories related to that.
That whole group is just bullshit martial arts is the name of the group. Excuse my language. BSMA. Don Rowley is the person who spearheads the group. And this is a high-ranking member of the Bujinkan, by the way, which is very embarrassing. But yeah, that guy, and I come to realization that he's sick, he's deranged, and it's something mentally wrong. And I'm not saying that just to be funny, but I really think that he's mentally disabled in that regard, because we're talking about somebody who lived and breathed negative things when it came to Frank Dukes, myself, and so forth. And he has a couple of his companions, Dale Dugas and Melvin Williams. Melvin, by the way, is another one of the group. Is a part of that group as well. Very, very negative people. I mean, we have a person who's high ranking in the Bujinkan who passed away by the name of Papa San. And he passed away, rest in peace, about a few years back. And his daughter, she's still alive and doing her thing and training and so forth. Melvin Williams of the Bullshit Martial Arts Group had the nerve to contact her and say some very negative things about her dead father. And I just couldn't believe it. This is Melvin Williams is somebody who's a Shihan in the Bujinkan. So we're talking about quality control when it comes to the Bujinkan and certain things that needs to be taken care of when it comes to the certain people who represent that organization.
What do you think Don Rowley and his group, why the issue with you and Dukes? Do you think he was just jealous that you guys were getting all the attention as ninjas? And
right? I don't know. Raleigh, to me, it appears from, because I'm from the outside looking in, looks like he's just bored. Like he doesn't have anything else better to do. Like he's bored. And it's so funny is that he moves like a pregnant yak, you know? So for him to have the nerve to say something negative about anybody, you know, it's pretty redundant. So I don't know, him, the whole group, it's ridiculous. And like I said, it's an embarrassment.
didn't he like challenge people? He might have even challenged you to like
Right.
a
He
fight
challenged
with like
me,
weapons and stuff.
challenged me, but as it turns out, he found every excuse in the world not to come out here. In fact, he actually had so I arranged for us to meet at a mutual halfway point, which was Utah, and for us both to meet there. And he once again found an excuse not to come there. And then all of a sudden, his ankle mysteriously got twisted, and he wasn't able to come. Period. So there you have it. We call them keyboard warriors.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. Me and Brian know all about that. Thoughts on a guy named Phil Elmore, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Let me read
Actually,
you a
I saw the video. I saw the video of Phil saying the things he said. It's so funny.
And I'll read real quick, David. I'll read a quote. This is why I bring him up. For the record, I don't know Phil that much. I don't have an issue with him. I've spoken to him on Facebook. I interviewed him before. So I don't know the guy that much, but I don't have an issue with him. But here's something that he said about me, and he mentioned your name. That's why I wanted to see like what kind of history you guys have, because he said Viking Samurai has endorsed people like David Richardson, which I'll endorse your magic, man. We've seen that trick at the beginning. It's amazing. But he also said David Richardson, who is a dangerous lunatic who constantly threatens to murder people he doesn't like. Like, where is he getting that from? Because, like, you seem like the nicest guy, man.
Well, you know, I love it. Hey, actually, that sounds like a movie, right? But no, I mean, like I said, he was part of that group, and he said those things that he said. And it was, if you ask me, it sounds like it's over the top. But the funny thing about that whole thing is, about a couple months after he said what he said, he called me up and said that he apologized about anything that he would hear, that I would hear later, because of the fact that he was involved with Raleigh. Now that as it turns out, he was no longer involved with that group, and he wanted to apologize about anything that I had heard come out of his mouth negative in regards to me. So that's why when I heard that, I started laughing, because this is what he was talking about. I didn't know what he was talking about until I saw it on your show.
Sure. Okay, so he was just teamed up fighting Raleigh and those guys' fight. I'll give him credit, though, that he actually apologized, because not a lot of people would do that.
Oh, no, exactly.
So cool.
I was really taken aback by that. I thought that was really out of his character. I didn't expect it. So when he said what he said, I was like, wow, okay. Thanks,
you know what's interesting about that, too, is I've always been fascinated. Hadn't been somebody... I took the martial arts very serious when I was younger. The whole Bushido way of the warrior, and I molded my character. It's the idea that these people are supposed to be so senior can be so unknowable, and have a very small understanding of honor and being noble. Like, and then all of a sudden you act like that, and it's so demeaning to what they're representing that you actually lose faith. You say all these guys, they're supposed to be these masters. And here they are, like an unhinged young person, just not acting stable and sane and warrior-like. You want to see stoicism, but not this drama kind of, almost childish at times.
I think there's a saying in that regard, in regards to us meeting our heroes or someone that we look up to. The one thing that's saying is that don't meet them.
Somebody said that to me the other day.
Don't. Because they will let you down. The truth of the matter is they're human. They're human. We all have.
I gotta say, I'm gonna make a profound statement right now, just to everybody out there. David, he was my hero when he came here. He did not let me down. I want to put that out to the world.
And I want to add to that. and this, I'm not trying to rub your shoulder in the right way or whatever. The truth of the matter is what you're doing in regards to this forum and giving everybody opportunity to speak out and so forth. And I love the way you say that you're neutral. You know, you got to give everybody a platform to express themselves, but you're neutral, for God's sake. And for someone to take that and say, "Oh, he's drinking the Kool-Aid," no. Yeah, so what you're doing, man, I really think I want to commend you on a job well done. Keep it up.
Oh, thanks,
And
man.
what's
Like at the
funny
end of
is,
the day,
what's funny is you're not going to be able to do this for too much longer because you're going to be a superstar one day. And when that happens, you're going to have people representing you doing this for you.
Yeah,
You're
I'll
making
only be able to say what they
you're
say I'm
making
allowed
your
to
brand now, sir.
Is that what's gonna happen? You're gonna be out in Hollywood. I'll be doing the show all by
He's
myself.
going to be too big, for God's sake.
It'll be fun to do this show if I blow up. That'd be even funner then, right? We get a much bigger audience.
Yeah,
But we're
that
trying
might
to start to build it by being consistent every Saturday. So thanks again, David, for joining. We got to talk about, let's move into the magic. When you got involved with magic.
Okay. Now, although in the martial arts, I'm kind of like a late bloomer, the magic is the opposite. I started doing magic when I was just an adolescent. So I had started magic when I was 11 years old, and it was just a hobby at one point. My mother bought me a magic set, and I just kept doing magic tricks. And next thing you know, I'm getting paid for it. I'm getting paid to make people happy for a living, for God's sake. It's a beautiful experience. Magic has taken me around the world, national TV, you name it. So yeah.
What's your favorite magic trick that you perform?
I do so much magic. I'm one of those magicians that, since I love the art so much, there's certain magic that intrigues me so much, such as levitations and magic that involves technology and so forth. I'll tell you what doesn't impress me or doesn't please me when it comes to being a magician. That's mind reading and things of that nature. I'm not really, and it's so funny is that I did a card trick on you, but actually I'm allergic to card tricks.
What do you mean?
I'm allergic to card tricks. I don't like card tricks, but let's face it, it's the easiest thing to carry with you when you want to impress somebody or show somebody something. It's a deck of cards. So I use card magic as a networking device for the most part, but card magic's not one of my things. I'm more of a stage magician. Birds, fire, levitations, things of that nature.
Oh, that's cool, man. Where can somebody book you or see you, for example, live?
I do a lot of corporate events, nightclubs, private parties.
Have an email? I'll put it
I have
up
a
here on
website.
the
I have a website, an email, which is connected
What's
to
the name
website.
of it? I'll post it. I'll actually find it right now and I'll post it.
Oh, okay,
What's
great.
the name of the website?
I have two different websites. One's for the magic, one's for the martial arts. The magic is ninjamagic.com. And that's going to be ninjamagik.com.
All right, I'm going to write that down right now.
Put that up, Brian, on the screen.
Ninja Magic, all one word.
Now, here's a question, David, because I know you also go by and represent the name The Magic of Dorian.
Correct.
Where'd that come from? That's your stage name. Okay.
I'm glad you asked that. That actually leads back to what we talked about earlier. In the 70s, for all you, I'm really dating myself now, there was a magician that fought crime in the streets on a TV show called The Magician. And instead of using a gun, this is during the heyday of all these cop thrillers, where the cops use guns to subdue their criminals. Well,
real quick, I just want to correct one thing, Brian. I think it's with a K, Ninja Magic with a K, right, David?
Oh, yes. NINJAMAGIK.
Okay, that's for like real magic, right? Isn't that how you're supposed to spell real magic or something?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure we got the right website on
I'm
there.
sorry. There it is.
Okay, cool.
There it is. Okay, so this magician that fought crime was Bill Bixby, and they had different episodes. I think it was 2 seasons on one season, what have you. And in the pilot episode, his name was Dorian the magician, what have you. So he would fight crime, use cards as shuriken, throw birds at his opponents to distract them or what have you, fire, you name it. So he was using magic as an element of surprise and distraction and so forth. The way someone would use a gun, but with a gun being lethal, I think they were trying to get away from that. The producers of the show, so that's what the magician was about. To answer your question, since he went by that name Dorian, I was a kid at the time, and I said one day I want to grow up and be just like that cat. And it's so funny because throughout his acting period, he did a lot of TV shows, and I was a big fan of Bill Bixby before he passed away. And like I said, he used that name Dorian on a pilot episode of The Magician, which is the reason why I decided to adopt myself as utilizing that name. Apparently, Oscar Wilde wrote a book called The Picture of Dorian Gray, and basically it was a story about a guy who was very, I guess he was very vain. So he had a curse put on a picture so that the picture would age and he wouldn't. And he was also ladies' man as well.
What year was this? What year was this?
What was this?
What year?
The Dorian the Magician?
Yes, I remember
70s.
this. You're just giving me a flashback. I remember that.
Yes,
Go
sir.
on. I'm sorry, but you just gave me a flashback from my childhood.
Right. So I thought that name was just fantastic. And then I'd heard about Oscar Wilde's book, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I just thought it was good. I think it was a cool name. I mean, David was already taken, of course. David Copperfield, David Blaine, so forth. So Dorian was good, Mystique, and all that good stuff.
Oh, for sure. Speaking of other magicians, like who are the ones you really look up to?
Well, nowadays I look up to myself for the most part, but okay. I guess as I was coming up, David Copperfield was somebody that I really kind of connected with because of his style on stage and the way he moved. And I love music, and I love the way he incorporates music into his magic and so forth. So that was one of my I want to say idol, but I really like the way he performed his magic.
Oh, very cool. Let's talk about the other website you have related to the ninja stuff.
You want me to post that too?
The name of that website is modernamwc.com.
Modern.
And so is this like, are you a martial arts instructor today where if people go to that website, is that what that website's for?
Correct. And I have instructors under me who work as well.
Where's your school at, or is it online training?
We do online training, and we also work at a park. We teach at a park as well.
Okay.
I think that looks different. Let's see. It's going to be ANWC. American Ninjutsu Warrior Concepts.
Okay, so American Ninjutsu Warrior Concepts. Is there like a curriculum where somebody would basically training long enough be the equivalent of a black belt in your system?
I'm sorry, what's the question again?
Oh, is this like something where if somebody trained long enough with you and or your instructors, they would be the equivalent of a black belt in that system? Is it like a martial arts curriculum like karate or taekwondo where you?
No, yes, we have a complete curriculum. It's not Bujinkan, it's not Dukeshru. It's American Ninjutsu Warrior Concepts. We've taken a lot of elements and concepts and derived it towards what we do as well. So we're a system upon ourselves. It's not either or of those two schools.
Would you say it's like a best of Dukeshru or Bujinkan, or is it not really? Like if somebody took Dukeshru or Bujinkan and then they took your system, would they have a lot of familiarity?
Oh yeah, most definitely, because we've borrowed from both organizations, but at the same time, we've moved on and beyond what it is that I learned when I was training at the time.
Okay. Now you mentioned Bujinkan quality control earlier. Like how would they fix Bujinkan? Because that's I'll just say it's something that kind of has a bad reputation. Like if you just do research, you know, and I don't doubt there are some very legit practitioners, but it does kind of have a bad reputation. It might even be related to some of the people who, you know, are involved with it that we had mentioned earlier.
Well, the interesting thing about the Bujicon is that, like I said, when it comes to quality control, we're not just talking about techniques and being able to do something on the floor, be able to defend yourself, or utilizing. We're talking about someone who represents themselves from a standpoint of the type of person that they are. Okay, that's what I mean by more so quality control. You know, idiots, people that misrepresent the organization because of the way their behavior outside of the dojo, not just inside the dojo. So that leaves a lot to be said when it comes to that. In regards to the physical aspects of it, when it comes to combative and techniques and so forth, what's interesting is there's a guy by the name of Akban. He's an Israeli martial artist, but he trains Bujicon, and he learned by one of the first generation Bujicon instructors by the name of Doran. But this particular instructor, Akban, he's been criticized as not looking like he's doing Bujicon at all. So people look at what he's doing and they say, "Oh, that's not Bujicon. That's not." Well, the funny thing is, guess what they're looking at? His aliveness and his pressure testing techniques. The people that are criticizing him are Bujicon members who are looking at it and saying, "Oh, that's not what we do. That's not what you do." Of course, it's not what you do. It's called aliveness. It's called pressure testing your techniques so that.
Can I ask you about that real quick? So what you're saying is kind of like when you see, let's say somebody learned, I'll use an analogy from boxing. Somebody learned the Philly shell, but never actually got in the ring. So it might look one way, but then you put a person in the ring, their Philly shell will morph into something very distinctly their own, although is the shell's concept of the shell, but it morphs into something that's their own. And you're saying that this guy, because he's been fought a lot, his has become alive. It's become him. It's been his expression, kind of like Bruce Lee talks about.
Well, yes, he's moved beyond just the technique. He's moved beyond just the movement and what have you. He's applied it to real life situations under pressure. So, of course, you're going to look at it, and if you've never done anything like this in your system, you're going to say it's not what you do. Of course, it's not what you do, and you ask yourself, why are you saying that?
Okay. You'd mentioned you're a student of life earlier, David, and I think that's how everybody should be, by the way. Any words of wisdom that you can share with us?
I got something really cool. I learned 9 principles of Musashi. And these are principles that to be applied not only to just combat, but for business, to life, you name it. 1, do not think dishonestly. Number 2, become acquainted with every art. Number 3, know the ways of all professions. Number 4, distinguish between gains lost and worldly matter. 5, develop intuitive judgment and understanding in everything. Number 6, pay attention to trifles. Number 7, do nothing that's of no use. Number 8, what was number 8? Perceive the thing that cannot be seen. And I think it's a number 9. I can't think of it right now. The ways in the training.
Yeah, great stuff. Anybody watching this, myself included, will have to rewind this section and get that a couple times to really let it sink in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool, man. Hey, Brian, you got any other?
I'm a really big book fanatic. I love books. I feel like knowledge is power, 1, but 2, I feel that you should always be open to learning different ways of, whether it's Western medicine, Eastern medicine, spiritual growth, self-help, all these things, all these books, all this knowledge has something to offer. Every martial art in itself has something to offer. So I think that I kind of I consider myself a student of life in that regard, because I feel like the world is just one big college for us to learn.
And so you're an avid reader. It's funny because I meet a lot of people, David, and from engineering celebrities, and all the most intelligent, impactful people read. They all read books. I've always found that they're big.
Yeah.
I'm not a big book reader, so it says something about me. But
you gotta,
you're a
if you
book
find
reader.
something, if you find something that intrigues you, you won't be able to put it down. It's that's what it takes. And I learned not to be that big book reader flying on an airplane. 13 hours, you learn real quick, or you fall asleep. But I learned I read my first novel going back and forth to Japan,
I think that's a testament to your intelligence level, though. I've just find everybody who are very insightful, unique people are avid readers, and it's just a common trait I've seen throughout all of these people. I'm fortunate to meet a lot of incredible people, but the really deep ones are just avid readers.
Yeah. Even Bruce was. Bruce
Yes,
loved it. Bruce
he had a whole library.
Yeah.
Whole
He was
library.
quite a philosopher, actually.
Wait a minute. I got it here, brother. Let's see if I got it here. Where is it? Maybe I don't. I got my Tao of Jit Kune Do.
You got the Tao.
Dude, I got
The Tao. Everybody should have the Tao, man. The Tao of Jit Kune Do.
Book. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's the whole reason we're here, is to learn and to experience things in our lifetime. So student life.
I had it over here. Actually, I was reading it. Well, David and I sit across from each other, and I was showing him stuff. And I said, I have an old book, bare knuckle boxing book, and it's the same one that Bruce Lee took pictures from and put in his. It's Hartzell was the guy who wrote it, and I have that book. Very interesting book. Tim and I have gone over it, and there's some very different thoughts about boxing back then. But yeah, I don't know where it is. I do have it around there somewhere. My Jit Kune Do.
Speaking of things in your proximity, David, like what's this stuff you got? Like these swords and this other stuff you got in the background here.
Oh, okay. These are, you got katana here, dai katana, and then we got the suba, which is the handguard of the swords. These are the suba. These are throwing stars. These are bow shuriken here, and this is more of a samurai tools utilized. So I just thought this was really good as a good background.
Oh, it looks great.
Thanks. Oh, there's a Tao. That's it.
I have it, brother.
I've owned 2 copies of that. One was out when I was in junior high school, and now I have the copy that I have now.
It's the whole reason I was a Taoist. I was a Taoist for a long time because of his writing. Yeah, deeply into the Chung Tuts, Lao Tuts. I don't know if you ever read any of those works.
Yes.
Fascinating. Yeah. And it's not even a religion, it's just a way of thinking, just a way of clearing the mind to think and see things clearly. Fascinating.
We had some required reading a while back. Dan Millman's Way of the Peaceful Warrior. That's a very good one. The Art of War, of course, Sun Tzu's Art of War. And it's another one that's got of course, Musashi, Book of Five Rings.
And you've read all these books, haven't you?
Are you kidding? I got to show you. Next time we do this, you're going to see my book collection. You're going to love it. You're going to be like, wow.
We're going to have you back on, just talk about your reading.
And I don't just read the book one time. I read 3-4 times, and I label it with tape. The first time I read it, red tape. Second time I read it, white tape. The third time, blue tape. And it's labeled on the binders when you see the binders.
That's very good, very smart, because usually if you read a book once, you'd be lucky if 10% stuck so much you
can grab.
Yeah, you're only going to absorb so much. Like there's a handful of books that you could pretty much reread your entire life, and that's more valuable than reading like 1,000 books, in my opinion.
And still get something new. I agree. Definitely.
Yeah. Very, very good stuff. Hey, I think we covered, for the most part, everything we wanted to cover today. And like Brian said, we're going to have to get you back. We usually keep these things at about an hour. Anybody in the audience watching live, you got any questions you'd like to ask before we take off here? See if anything comes.
You got a guy, Paul Venus, K1 kickboxing and boxing. Yes, Viking, my brother. You must know him. Looks like
Well, I
he's
do.
probably
Yeah, I mean, he had made a Instagram thing about me before. I don't know if this is his real channel. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not, because there's a lot of fake accounts out there. But yeah, I do. I am aware of the guy. The guy's aware of me. He's an amazing. Actually, he's an undefeated kickboxer. And me and the guy, Karate Marty from the UK, the famous ceiling kick, Brian. We're trying to get him a fight in our event, hopefully, which we do next year in 2024. But nobody wants to fight Paul Venus because he's undefeated and he's a beast and he's really good. But anyway, speaking of competitive fighting, is that something you ever thought about or looked into, David?
No, everything that we do is survival, combat, street ready stuff. The trophies that you take home would be survival. You live and to fight another day. That's our trophy. We don't believe in none of the trophies. Not to take anything away from those guys that are on a tournament circuit and you name it. But no, we don't do none of that. I've never been intrigued by that. I thought it was a great way to express yourself and to show off some of your techniques and so forth. But like I said, that's a controlled environment. We're talking uncontrolled.
I'd like to talk with you offline a little bit about something Tim and I are doing called the Philly Shell concept. It's just
nice.
A lot of people don't understand it. It's not a defensive position that people think it is, but we use it with Wing Chun guys, karate guys. You can use it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Have you tried any dirty boxing?
Yeah, we do it. We do 52 blocks. We do it Light Burley every Friday.
I figured that.
We do a live with him every Friday. Tim and him do a live.
I figured you did. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Hey, I hang out a little bit, David. I got to ask you something, but I think we could close this show out because we're going to get you back anyway. Oh, one last question, I guess. Is there what books are you reading right now? I know you reread certain books. Like what's on your current reading list right now? Just out of curiosity.
Right now, I haven't got a chance to read some stuff. Been kind of out of because what happens with me is pretty funny. I call them phases. There's a phase in my life, like for 6 months straight, I'm reading something. I gotta pick up stuff and read it. Now, sure. I'm not in that phase of kind of absorbing knowledge right now. I've been more business orientated, kind of getting my business off the ground and pushing things and the magic thing. So, yeah, I haven't really been delving into many books lately.
Yeah, it makes sense. I go through phases too, where I try to allot a certain amount of time per day, but lately, because I've been so busy with everything else, I haven't. One book though I did buy that one of my readers suggested, funny enough. I haven't cracked it open yet. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. And that's because I deal with like a lot of trolls lately. So somebody recommended this. Dude, just read this book, man. Like F those guys. And anyway.
Hey, Viking, I just want to put it out again to everybody. Please, I am looking for trolls. I do feel fairly insignificant in life. I will take any attention, and I'm serious, good or bad, as long as you're thinking about me, please. My channel needs trolls. I got 148 subscribers. I will take 20,000 trolls. You can say anything horrible about me. I don't mind. Please. I need somebody stalking me. I don't see any comments in here about me and how terrible my punch is or anything like that. But anyways, I'm just
know what they say. You know what they say. They say that if you're whatever it is that you're doing, if you haven't got at least 3 or 4 haters or trolls or 7 haters or trolls by the end of the week, that you're not doing it right.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
You gotta step up your game, Brian. You're not doing it right, man.
Step up your game, man.
Your 2024 goals. We got to get some trolls to your channel. So tell everybody your channel real quick so they can.
I keep trying to herd them over to my channel because they'll make a comment someday because I'll comment something about Viking and then they'll be like, rah, and I'll say, take it to my channel. Just go over there.
I'll tell you what'll be funny, Brian. You might get the trolls over to your channel, but just talking crap about me. So they still won't give you attention.
Please, you can do that there. We'll be the bastion for that because I want to get monetized. I do need 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers.
No, you only need 1,000. You need 4,000 hours of watch time. But doing these lives will add that watch time. But yeah, what's your channel name real quick before we go?
It's weird, but you can't find it. It's weird news in history. I
Did
gotta
you think
change
that
it,
maybe
right?
that might be the reason why you've gotten trolls because they can't find it?
Even
Make
on
it more-
here, though, nobody says anything about me on here. Where's my attention? They say it
Make
all
it more
about him.
accessible, man. Make it more accessible.
Good or bad, good or bad. Attention on me.
We'll get you some trolls. Don't worry, man. That's one of my goals next year too, to help you out in that. But anyway, let's cut the feed, and then we got to ask David a couple other things here real quick privately.
Definitely.
Sounds
All right,
good.
guys. All right, you ready to go? See you, everybody.
Thanks,
See you
David.
guys
Appreciate
next
ya.
time. Peace. Bless.